Hello, and welcome to Wannabe. Today, we're incredibly lucky to have Ayesha McGowan with us. Ayesha's not just any cyclist. She's the first African-American woman pro road cyclist. Her journey is the epitome of passion, starting from her days as a preschool music teacher to being a commuter cyclist in college, and now a groundbreaking professional in the sport. In today's episode, we'll uncover Ayesha's transition from cycling to work to dominating races. We'll also dive into the importance of representation in cycling and Ayesha's initiative, A Quick Brown Fox, which aims to empower women of colour in the sport. You don't want to miss this illuminating conversation, so let's get into it. Who did you want to be before you became who you are today, and why?
I wanted to be the happiest version of myself.
What would that look like? Or what did you think that looked like, actually?
I don't know that I have that answer even now. I think there are things that I enjoy and things that I don't enjoy. And I guess it looks like doing the things I enjoy and not the things I don't enjoy. But unfortunately, that's not how life works. So
That is not how life works, unfortunately. In terms of your kind of quest to be the happiest version, what are the things, you mentioned things that you like doing, things you don't like doing. What are some of the things that you like doing?
I mean, I really like riding bikes, but sometimes I don't feel like it. So I guess the happiest version of me would be able to ride the bike whenever I felt like it and then not have to when I don't, which means that being a pro cyclist is not a good idea. But yeah, no, that part, being able to help others. I really enjoy doing things for other people, especially Black people and people of color.
Something you mentioned earlier was like wanting to ride the bike when you want to ride it and not riding when you don't want to ride it. Under what circumstances would you be riding and not wanting to? Like, what is the process of becoming a pro cyclist in the first place? But also, like, I guess because you're doing it professionally, you will have moments where you just don't feel like it because it's work rather than for fun. Is that like a correct assumption?
I'm very fair weather. So I don't want to ride when it's cold. I don't want to ride when it's raining. I don't want to ride when I am sad or super tired or just in a generally bad mood. Sometimes I want to do nothing. And, the process of training is consistency. You have to show up consistently to make any sort of progress and, get anywhere. And so I can't not ride when those things happen.
Yeah.
And it's not a huge deal, but the happiest version of myself doesn't have to do those things.
Yeah. I am a commuter cyclist. Have been for like 4 years. Wow. Okay, 4 years now. And so I completely hear you on being a fair weather cyclist.
When I started as a commuter, the first year I was super fair weather, and then it became this like hardcore thing where I was like, I have to ride no matter what. And so like
I think I'm that person.
I would like do the most to like counteract the cold or the rain or the snow or the whatever was going on. I'm not her anymore, but I do recall like being like, I'm not gonna like punk out because it's too cold. But I was fighting the feeling. I don't think at that point I accepted that. I don't like the cold, and that's okay.
To go back to you being pro and showing up consistently, in terms of like that transition from going from commuting and just doing it for fun and then turning pro, like what was that process and what sparked the interest in kind of taking it to the next level?
It was a long process, actually. I started commuting in 2007, and I didn't start like competing in a formal way until like 2014. So it was a 7-year journey from I'm riding a bike to get to class to now I'm competing on a velodrome or in a road race. I didn't even know it was a thing I could do. I don't think most people know much about bike racing, especially in the States. It's not really one of our staple sports. And so it was like I was riding a bike, but I never thought I could race a bike in that way. It didn't seem achievable or accessible, nor did I take any effort to figure out how to make it so. Like it just wasn't a thought I had. Um, and, just being within the cycling community for 7 years, I just naturally gained more information and more knowledge about what was out there. I explored cycling in many different forms. I started as a commuter, and then I got into advocacy and um, started doing like street racing. I was a messenger for a very short time. Being a fair weather cyclist is not at all compatible with being a bike messenger at all. And when I graduated from college, I was living in Boston at the time, and then I moved to
Oof,
Brooklyn.
that is cold. Okay.
Tell me about it.
That's
Yeah, I've
icy.
never known cold like New England cold. I will never live there again if I can help it. And immediately moved to Brooklyn when I was done with school and got into more advocacy there. But then there was also like a very rich, like bike scene of just young people having fun on bikes and doing fun things.
Hmm.
And I, got really into that. And like I would go to work during the day and like stay out all night riding with
Oh,
friends. And
wow.
just like it felt very like, "Oh, this is New York." It was really silly, but I had a lot of fun, and eventually found a group that was doing clinics trying to like get more women into cycling called
Hmm.
We Bike NYC. And they were hosting a ride to the velodrome so you could do a track clinic.
Oh, wow.
And the velodrome in New York is in Queens at Casino, and there's no easy way to get there. That barrier of like, how do I get there was conquered by having a group willing to lead the way.
Hmm.
And so I
Hmm.
rode with them to the velodrome, did the track clinic, and then at the end of the clinic, they were like, yeah, now you can just race. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. It's totally how it works.
Oh,
But
wow.
for me, I was like, no. Mm-mm. And so it took me another year and another track clinic to like really
So
start racing on the
what is like a
velodrome.
track clinic? Like what do you do there? Like
They
what's involved?
they went over all the basics. It was how to start, how the different races work. Because track racing, there's like, it's actually very, very cool. But there's a bunch of different kinds of races you can do on the track. There are
Hmm.
shorter races, there are longer races, different kinds of like gamey type things where you can win points for different, like if you cross the line in a specific place.
Oh, wow.
They have races where you can be eliminated if you cross the line last. And they do that each lap until there's only like I think two or three people left, and then they sprint it out for the win. And then they have the opposite version of that. That if you, it's called a win and out. If you cross the line first on the first lap, then you're done. And then
Oh,
they
wow.
do that until there's however many people left. But it's cool. It's really dynamic, super engaging, very short. Great if you have ADD like me. But yeah, they just taught you everything. They taught you how to pin a number on a jersey.
Oh, wow. That is
Yeah,
everything.
like how the officials worked. And I believe they also like let you borrow a bike if you don't have one. I think I borrowed one from my now husband. It was a little too big for me, but it was fine.
Mm, yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was a great experience.
Can you describe like what that felt like that moment of knowing or that point where you're like I actually do feel like I'm ready now. Like what was happening in your life? What was going on at that time? Was it just more racing, building up the confidence? Like, was it a gradual process, or do you feel like there was actually kind of like a moment where it all just kind of clicked for you?
I think it was a lot of ignorance, to be honest. Like I just
That's real. Fair
I'm
enough.
really good at making big decisions and really bad at making small ones. And
Okay.
so for me, deciding to become a professional cyclist didn't seem like a big decision at all. It was just like, oh, this is something I'm gonna do. Like for me, that's easier than deciding what to have for lunch, which I know sounds absolutely insane, but
Mm,
I promise I'm not exaggerating. Um, so I don't think it was like a life-changing moment in any way. It obviously was
hmm.
inevitably a life-changing moment in every way, but at the time it did not feel like it.
Did you have any expectations around the lifestyle change that was going to happen when you made that decision? So, like, how you were going to like earn money, or like, yeah, like the kind of I guess like the logistics of going pro and what that meant in your kind of day to day life.
No, I didn't, and my plan was just to like just keep moving forward and see where it led, see what happened. Understanding that I would figure it out eventually. I didn't quit my day job. I
Hmm.
kept going to work. I just kept showing up for races and trying to find more information, mentorship, whatever was out there. And
Hmm.
to be quite honest, at the time, there wasn't much, especially for Americans. And there still isn't a whole lot, but there is way more guidance, I think. Um, yeah, I mean, at the time, they were just starting to really accept women into cycling as a thing
Hmm.
that needed to be nurtured. And so that was a huge initiative of like more women in cycling, like supporting more women in bike racing and all of that. But as per usual, the women of color or Black women conversation was not being had by anyone. And so I'm like, hey, hold on now, don't forget about us.
What were some of the kind of upfront costs that you had to make when building your first bike? And then I guess like moving on from now, you've probably got several bikes. So what are the some of the costs and implications of trying to take this
So
forward?
the cool thing about track bikes is they have way less pieces. There's far fewer pieces. I also was dating someone who worked at a bike shop.
Nice.
Had a lot of friends in the community, and so lots of trading and connections and hustling and like figuring out. And I also had a job, like a full-time job as a however I was like 25. And so I could theoretically support investing a little bit into my hobby. But then once you get into road bikes, it can get super astronomical.
I have
And so
seen.
that was definitely a barrier. When I first started road racing, I didn't own a race bike, and so I had to acquire one. And I didn't build that one from the ground up. I bought it, but I didn't have the money, so I put it on I put it on
Ah.
layaway at the bike shop. And just by luck, I was at work. I was a preschool music teacher, and they decided to use the school where I worked as a location for a bank commercial.
Oh, nice.
And they needed one more person to be in the commercial. And so I was there and they chose me to do it. And I literally smiled in this bank commercial for like half a second. And it was enough to buy my bike.
Nice. I love that. I love like serendipitous moments like that where it
Yeah,
kind
it
of
was
all
meant
just
to be.
it just comes together. It was meant to be. Yeah, I think cost is something that is a huge consideration. Certainly with cycling. I mean, I my first bike I got it on Groupon. It was like £150. It served me well.
There you
I
go.
had it for 3 years. It technically still runs, but I had a baby, and so I was like, oh, I need to put my baby on the back of this bike. Um,
Maybe get a more
I'm gonna get a
reliable.
I'm gonna get a slightly more a slightly more stable bike in terms of like your pro career in terms of and the people around you. You said your now husband also into bikes and cycling. Your family also supportive and generally pleased with the direction of your career trajectory so far.
Yeah, I think everyone's super proud. My mom started riding bikes. Like everyone is super supportive and within my family, but they've always been like that. If I said I wanted to go dress in purple and swim in the sea, they'd be the number one supporter of whatever that was. But also I've also been super like going whichever way the wind blows, and so no one's ever really surprised by whatever I come up with
Yeah.
in the moment. Like, again, oh, that's what she's doing now. All right, I guess we are purple outfit swimmer fans now.
What led you into the advocacy work? Could you describe what that looks like and yeah, like what that how that works in your world and the impact it's having?
So I think I got into advocacy by chance because I was trying to save money. The same reason I got into bikes. When I was living in Jamaica Plain, which is like an area just on the edge of Boston, um, there's a bike shop there called Bikes Not Bombs. It's still there, and they at the time had adult instructor training, and it was a program where they taught you how to do bike mechanics, and in turn, you agreed to volunteer for one session of their youth program where you taught kids the bike mechanics, like how to build a bike.
Nice.
And I was like, well, this sounds like a great way to not have to pay somebody to fix my bike. So I will do it. And so I did this, but it was not just how to fix a bike. It was like how to like work with people and how to advocate for people, how to communicate with people. We learned a lot about like all of the isms and discrimination against them, like not like adultism and racism and all the different ways people can, you know, be awful to one another. But since we were working with a youth program, they wanted to make sure that we weren't going to like make the kids feel really small all the time and like tell them they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe I've been always an open type of person, but it's always nice to have that like, oh yeah, this is a thing that people do. Like just being aware of your personhood and your privilege and all of the things, which it was very comprehensive. And it was a super diverse group of adults. It was also a really diverse group of like people who worked at the bike shop. And I also appreciated that it was led by a previous youth that went through the program. Like he was an adult at that point, but he had gone through the program and then had become the executive director of this nonprofit. And it was like a really cool thing. So I think that was my introduction into advocacy, and also just riding a bike and just seeing how messed up things are. You naturally become an advocate because it's literally your safety on the line. Like your parents are nervous for you and they have a good reason, because it's not the safest form of transport. Not that there is a safe form of transport, but people are very angry about bikes a lot of the time. And so it makes you want to advocate for that not to be the case. And so from there, you know, I just met so many interesting people that I kept finding myself in these different like cycling circles. And so when I moved to Brooklyn and I became part of that We Bike NYC group, I met even more people. And that group did a clinic with, it was Achilles International at the time, and they still have Achilles International where they run with people with disabilities. And there was a bike part of that where you had tandem bikes. So you ride with people with disabilities. Most of the folks were visually impaired. And that I started working for them. Oh, it's so much fun. I loved riding tandem bikes. I loved connecting with people. I learned a lot about the world. We rode in Central Park every week. And so I also, you know, just in the nature of being in one of that, you know, that place specifically, I just encountered so many different people and saw so many cool things, and eventually decided I was going to, you know, specifically advocate for Black women in bike racing, because that was the thing that I'd gotten myself into next. And that was, you know, I needed someone to advocate for me. So I was like, well, I'm going to make space for myself and as many other folks as possible. So
nice. And in terms of the work with Black women, how's that going? Still going?
I think it's going pretty well. I don't know that there's an end in sight yet. But it's over the years has morphed into many different things. And so now my big thing is the Abundance Project. And basically I provide support to women who are interested in bike racing. And so we're on our third year of the program. We've just selected our recipients for our mini grant program, which allows a couple of women to race bikes at one of the biggest bike races in America, which is really cool.
Nice.
It's a multi-day criterium race, and you guys know what criteriums are now. And it's just a great way to try again, because with stage racing, which is also multi-day road racing, usually if you don't do well or finish the first day or whatever day, you can't keep going. But in these criterium series, they're all independent. So there is an omnium, which means that there is a competition for overall doing better than everybody else over the course of the entire series, but they're all individual races. So if you don't do well one day, you can show up again the next day. There's no requirement to finish to show up again. So you have multiple opportunities to try this thing and get better at it.
That's the key thing, is that it is about fostering where people are at and allowing them the space and the grace to go, try, don't like that, cool, don't do that again. And I think there isn't,
not for me.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
Yeah, I completely empathize with that because we have a grant program, but for podcasters and audio creators. And it's every time they're like, do I need to do it this way or this way? And we're like, do it whatever way. Like, there are no strings with this. This is literally a risk-taking zone. Like, this is what this was created for. It's like, take the risk. If it works, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. You learned something, and that's all that matters. The question on my mind right now, actually, is what are you working on getting better at right now?
In this moment, I am working on getting better at understanding what rest looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so bad at it. And refinding my confidence. I had a major surgery last year. I had fibroids in my uterus,
Wow.
and which unfortunately is super common for Black women.
I have 3, so.
Yeah, so they took out 12.
Wow.
It was a huge problem. It was blocking my intestines, which is the reason that it became a huge problem. I couldn't poop.
Oh, wow.
And it's really not optimal as an athlete. I'd gotten this huge opportunity to race in the world tour, and I was so excited, and then it just wasn't going well. I never felt good. I couldn't figure out why, and then, that was why.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and so now I am recovering from that, and it's taking, longer than I want it to take. It's much harder than I want it to be. I had a C-section. I didn't have any kids, but I delivered 12 fibroids. And so they cut through my abdominal muscles, and I had to heal from that. I'm still healing from that. And it's super annoying. And I'm a super impatient person when it comes to myself. I think I can be patient with other people, but not me. And I'm also the kind of person that's always been such a high achiever that it's hard being bad at something. Yeah. And I know how that sounds, but I am being sincere. I promise.
I fully hear you. Like, so deeply and spiritually. Every cellular level, I understand. Like, before this podcast became what it is today, I was like, this is the podcast for high achievers, and we just do not know how to function at not doing well. So I hear you. I really do.
So basically, my brain has decided that it doesn't care what I want. And until I figure out how to rest and be patient and allow space to exist as a mere mortal, it's not going to do the things I want it to do. So that's what we're working on. Just understanding that it's okay to be where I'm at. Yeah. So.
Oh, that was a message. I feel like this message came at the right time for me. Thank you.
Do I believe it yet? I don't know, but we're working on it.
Thank you so much, Ayesha. This has been wonderful. I found it fascinating to learn more about you and what you're doing and the amazing work that you're doing to help other people progress in this. And I feel like I'm probably just going to tap you up and be like, I entered a race. I did it.
Do it.
One day
There's
it'll happen.
Also women of color communities and groups in London for sure. I know for
almost certainly. I just have not tried that hard, to be fair. But I definitely feel like I'm craving community and a tribe around an interest.
We'll connect you with some folks for sure.
Amazing. Please do. Thank you. I would really appreciate it. And that's a wrap. If you know someone that would benefit from the knowledge and wisdom shared in this episode, please do share it with them now. To keep up with Wannabe, follow us along on your favourite podcast player or app, or follow at Content is Queen HQ on Instagram for the latest updates and episode releases. Until next time, bye.